I'd like to call the March 6th, 2024 Lowell Planning Commission meeting and public hearing to order at 6:04 p.m. Would you all please join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Jeremy, do you have any changes to the agenda?
No changes. Before we get started, I will note for the record that everybody is present.
Okay, great. If there are no items of comment, I need virtually. If there are any comments on items not already on the agenda? Are there? No? For those attending virtually, please use the raise hand feature or speak up to comment. I need approval of the minutes. Are there any comments or corrections for the minutes? We have several minutes on our consent agenda.
Don't you need to call a roll?
Yeah. Oh, he already did. He said everyone's present. Sorry. We're gonna try and move through this.
You need a motion.
Sorry, I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
I motion to approve for approval of the agenda. I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Sorry, I got two things going on here, guys. We have the minutes for the March 22nd meeting of 2022, the January 4th meeting of 2023, January 18th of 2023, January 25th of 2023, February 1st of 2023, February 15th of 2023, March 1st, 2023, March 15th, 2023, and February 21 of 2024. Are there any comments or corrections to anyone?
I'd like to make a comment that we get these minutes after we have the meeting to approve them for the next meeting. It's kind of hard to go back all the way and approve them. But I will make a motion that we approve them.
There a second?
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? No, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Great. New business. Review of the land use application 2024-01 variance for the use of the alleyway in downtown residential district zone. Sorry. This. Tonight we will have a public hearing for two variance requests for a property located on map and tax lot, Lane County map and tax lot 19-01-14-24-04500. The first variance is a request to not use the alleyway to access the property as required by the building standards for buildings in downtown residential detached zone. The second variance request is to the facade transparency requirements for the buildings in the downtown residential detached zone. The facade transparency requirements are a minimum of 40% of the facade area. This is a type 3 land use process. The Planning Commission's role tonight is to hold a public hearing and render a decision on the two requested variances. An appeal of the Planning Commission's decision may be appealed to the City Council. The public hearing is now open. The order will follow tonight. We will follow tonight is staff report from staff, the applicant's presentation, those in favor of the applicant, comments from those in favor of the applicant, comments from those opposed to the applicant, and then the applicant's final rebuttal. Before we begin, there are some important statements that must be read into the record in accordance with the Oregon state laws. State law requires decision makers to be impartial. Does any commissioner wish to make any disclosure or abstain from participating or voting on the application because you may gain financially as a result of this application? You own property within the area entitled to receive notice of this hearing. You have a direct private interest in the proposal, or because you have determined that you cannot be impartial. Anyone? No, not hearing anyone abstaining. Does any commissioner need to declare any contact, written or otherwise, with the applicant or any other party involved in this hearing, or any other source of outside information regarding the subject of this hearing? None? Excellent. Have any commissioners visited the site?
Yes.
I drive past it regularly.
Yeah.
I walk past it,
I
right?
wanted to take a quick peek at it and go about it. Yeah.
Small town, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't think that that has any bearing on this, does it, Jeremy?
No,
Okay, great. Does anyone present have an objection to the Lowell Planning Commission jurisdiction or impartiality? Hearing none, we're moving on. We will now turn to staff for the staff's report.
Thank you. Good evening, planning commissioners. It's a pleasure to be back tonight. Tonight we have two variances. The first one is for an alleyway access, and the second one is to facade transparency. My name is Henry Hurley, and I'll be providing the staff report tonight. Jeremy, do you have the slides ready to go?
I did. Would you like me to pull them up, or do you want to do the screen
Yeah,
share?
please pull them up, and then I'll tell you when to advance, if you don't mind. Perfect. So the first application we're going to talk about tonight is the access to the alleyway. We did receive 3 public comments. All are in favor of granting the variance. The comments have generally talked about privacy, noise, nuisance with having cars drive behind their homes to access the site. The Lowell Fire Department also submitted comment that they are in favor of the variance and feel that access is better served through North Highland than the alleyway. Next slide, please. This is a aerial photo of the site. The area outlined in yellow is the alleyway we are talking about tonight. The area in red is the property itself. As you see, one unique feature about this alleyway is that it does not extend to the next block. Staff do find that to be a unique situation in which a variance may be warranted. And also, as alluded to in the public comments, you can see that vehicles would have to drive behind the homes to access the site. And also relating back to the fire department comment, it may be difficult to get fire truck access back behind this alleyway. And they thought a better access would be right off North Highland. Next slide, please. So this is what the alternate access may look like, and this is showing access right off North Highland. The fire department would rather have this access point than use of the alley. And also what you see here is a site plan for residential development that is probably coming to the Planning Commission in the next few months. But tonight we're just talking about the 2 variances. Next slide, please. So this is the standard that we are talking about tonight. Off-street parking, drives, garages, and other vehicle areas must be oriented to and accessed from an alley. So that is the standard that we're talking about to provide a variance for tonight. Next slide, please. And I'm briefly going to go over the criteria. So the first criteria is that there's a circumstance or a condition affecting the property. Staff do find that there is a condition affecting the property. The alleyway is unique in that it dead ends in the property and does not continue through to the next block. The second criteria is that the variance is necessary for proper design and function of the site. The necessary and proper access is via North Highland in this case. The alleyway, as shown on the site plan, does present some obstacles and nuisances. Next slide, please. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public health. The opposite may be true based on the public comments and the fire department. The fire department believes that the proper access is via North Highland, and the public comments allude to the alleyway as being injurious to the public and adjacent properties. And lastly, that the granting the variance will not conflict with the purpose and intent of the district. Now, the purpose of the DRD zone is to create a convenient, pedestrian-friendly access to shopping, employment, recreation, and education activities in the downtown area. Now, even with the property taking access off North Highland, there will still be 2 pedestrian access points from the site to the downtown core area. There will be a pedestrian walkway from the site to the area that is proposed to be a parking lot right next to City Hall. And there will also be a sidewalk on North Highland leading to West Boundary Road and the downtown area. Next slide, please. So staff do find that the circumstances are met for granting a variance, and staff do recommend that the Planning Commission approve the variance as requested. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about, I think, was there one in between that, Jeremy? Okay, so now we're going to switch to the second variance, and this is to facade transparency. This land use application file is 2024-03. Next slide, please. So this is the standard we are talking about tonight. As you see here, the facade transparency for ground floors and upper floors are 40% of the facade area. Next slide, please. The applicant did a good job and submitted site plans showing what that looks like. As you can see here, this is the right side elevation that would face North Highland. And what you see here is 40% facade transparency. And the part we're kind of talking about tonight and possibly concerned with is the ground floor, which will be garages, will essentially be 2 large glass windows or sliding doors. Staff don't feel that was the intent of this standard for this zone. And next slide, please. And to compare that, what you see here is the same elevation, but at 15% facade transparency. This is the portion that would face North Highland. I think the applicant is pushing to go down to 15%, but I believe the Planning Commission could discuss and debate whether, 15 is too little, or if they'd rather have a different percentage other than 40. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the criteria for the variance. That there are conditions affecting the use of the property. So the zone permits residential and commercial uses. But in this case, they're just proposing solely residential, and that is permitted. And staff don't believe that the intent was to have ground floor garages with large glass sliding windows. Staff believe there's some flexibility or concessions that can be made with respect to the level of facade transparency, though. And the second criteria necessary for the proper design, the proper design is not to have the ground floor garages with 40% transparent windows facing North Highland. In place of 40% on the ground floor, perhaps there's a more suitable area of the building for 40% transparency, or maybe a lower percentage if the Planning Commission finds that appropriate. Next slide, please. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare. Staff find no reasonable grounds as to why the variance would be detrimental to public welfare. Planning Commission may find otherwise. I also wonder if it's sort of a security issue to have your garage with that level of facade transparency facing the street. And then the last criteria, that the variance will not conflict with the purpose and intent of the zone. Now, the facade transparency is an important building design standard that was adopted and furthers the downtown master plan. Now, the code does require the lower and upper floors to be 40% transparent, but this property may be unique. There are some planning commissioners that may recall when we adopted that plan, this property was discussed at length, and the Planning Commission decided to zone this property the DRD because they felt that was the use that was most likely to locate there. DRD is most similar to a traditional single-family housing. The 40% transparency may be more appropriate for commercial uses if they were to locate there. Now staff think there might be some flexibility. If 40% is too high on the ground floor facing North Highland, perhaps the applicant or the planning commission could require a higher transparency on the rear elevations of the building, the part that you would see driving into town. So I believe planning commission can approve the variance, but I wonder if planning commission should discuss and debate if there are other areas of the building that would warrant a higher facade transparency and not the ground floor facing North Highland. And next slide, please. So I do recommend that planning commission approve. However, I wonder if there is another percentage that can be decided upon, and possibly other areas of buildings that could have a greater facade transparency. This is something that the planning commission should debate and consider. And I'll stop there.
Do any of the planning commissioners have any questions for staff? Henry, what do you feel would be a happier medium? What size are those windows if we're going from 40 to 15%?
Yeah,
I don't have
I don't have a set percentage in mind, and the applicant can tell you the sizes of those windows. They did state that 15% is what is required in Eugene and Springfield. However, Lowell is not Eugene and Springfield, and they did adopt this downtown master plan, and facade transparency is an important design aspect. So I don't think they should go below 15. I think 15 is the absolute bare minimum, but I believe there's some happy medium in between there, between 15 and 40. And as I said, maybe the facade transparency can be moved to a different side of the building, maybe the rear, make that look nicer and not worry so much about the side facing North Highland.
And we're involved with the size of the windows because it's part of the downtown aesthetics, or?
Well, so the code says they have to have 40% of glazing on the front of the building. And that gets you those giant windows or sliding glass doors down in the garage level, which is not really practical for a garage.
Right.
It's not safe, it's not. But I'm wondering if we went from 40, if that was.
Jeremy, if you want to show the slide showing the 40.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Drawing,
We can see the 40 to 15.
You know, it's tough without seeing the full design for the,
Right, and
Property.
that's one of the things that ran through my mind
Yeah.
was, why are we approving glazing now, you know, and not the entire
Yeah.
project all at the same time?
aspect.
Jeremy, can you answer that?
Well, the decision on this variance is going to affect
Their design.
the design that they submit.
Which is kind of what I thought, is they're trying to nail their design down so they don't have a whole bunch of reviews.
And if I may speak, we believe that the intent was a commercial building. And what they're looking for is storefronts to have certain amount of windows, which completely makes sense. But anywhere else in the country, the residential is just 15%. And because we're doing residential and not business, that's the problem, because if we're held at 40%, you'd have two huge sliding glass doors inside of the garage that really don't make sense. But what I would suggest is the point is to have it look good and the way it's supposed to, that maybe we could be required to do certain landscaping and trees, stuff on that side of the building facing the road. We want to make this look good for the public.
We're gonna do, I don't wanna get too far into the weeds on this, you guys are gonna have your chance.
Sure.
But we just need to finish this. And then
Oh, okay, so
you
we'll
guys,
talk later.
yes, you guys are gonna have your absolute chance.
Sorry.
But I like where you're going.
Yeah. Okay, I just didn't understand why this was coming now, as opposed, it's a little cart before the horse for me. And then, so yeah, did you guys get this in your packet?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, the 15 makes common sense.
right.
As opposed to big slide glass doors. Who wants slide glass door in their garage? So I guess the thing is, like, the next time we meet about this project is deciding on that project, but it almost feels, because we have two residential homes on that same side of the road and stuff, instead of holding out and saying, no, we want a commercial building there with stores and stuff, we're gonna,
Well, this body, several, is probably in this packet, the minutes for it, decided that that piece of property was going to be downtown residential detached.
all right, so that's
As
already kind of
opposed to
been,
downtown commercial detached, because we felt that it would be better fit with the fact that there's two residents there. There's residents across the street. North boundary is a natural.
Mhm.
That was the thought process behind that decision.
okay,
And I only know that because I sat here. But,
right,
and so then the city sold the property to these guys who wanted to develop. So,
okay.
so
yes, because that's kind of what my point was that, okay, we've kind of decided this is gonna be residential slash family, multifamily, whatever. Anyway, so the best exposure or whatever to make sense would be the 15 or somewhere in between the 15 and 40.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if you guys already decide it's gonna be residential, then it should just be held to the residential standards. That just makes sense.
Yeah,
It looks like three-story homes,
Townhomes, it looks like.
3 stories.
Yeah, they're gonna be townhomes, about 3 stories. And if I might just clarify, that zone allows residential or commercial. It can be either of them, and they're selecting residential. Which is fine. It's why it's zoned that way. It's to be flexible.
So this is going to look like the townhome development that we
The other,
have
did in
going.
February.
Yeah,
And so these buildings will be much higher than what's in the area.
yes, they will.
Okay,
They're 3-story.
but that's not under discussion right now. Okay.
That will be for a later time.
See.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions?
Just the alleyway, is that city property or is that? It is. Oh, okay, just curious.
Can we ask questions?
We will get there.
Okay.
We're not there yet. We'll get there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so, okay, we're gonna move on into, do you guys have anything else? No, okay. We're moving into the testimony portion of the hearing. Please wait until called on to present testimony, state your name, address, and address for the record. In your testimony, you should address the applicable approval criteria or circumstances and state the fact around the issue. You must raise each issue with sufficient specificity to allow for other parties to respond and to understand the nature of your comments. If you do not raise an issue during the public hearing, you may not use that issue as the basis for an appeal. Now will the applicant please provide their presentation and testimony and state why these applications should be approved?
Absolutely.
Come on up to the table.
My name is Tim Yeager, my partner Jake Briggs, business partner in this project. The important thing we feel is the intent of the original regulations of why this was being done. And the intent, first of all, of using the alleyway to access it was they didn't want driveways coming in off the main street. And our property is unique in that all these driveways are going to be from the center of the property going out. And so they will be behind where you're going to see them anyway. We don't need the alley to meet the intent. And it would be, we would have to drive, or tenants would have to drive in front of those two homes, around them, and then behind them to get in there. And so those two homes don't want that either. The quickest, easiest, safest access is to get to West Boundary Road from West Highland, and that clearly makes the most sense. And so we meet the intent without having to use the alley. We don't have anything coming from the street other than one from Highland, and all the driveways come off that. And then as far as the glazing, the 40% versus 15%, 15% is standard for residential, because we do residential, that's what we feel that if we were doing commercial, of course, then we'd be held up to 40% because it's commercial.
We want to match the neighboring area of the glass too. If you put 40%, it's gonna look
Well, it would just
out of
look
place compared to the other
out of
houses.
place. But we do agree that, you know, we both live here, and I've been here 20 years, Jake has been here his entire life.
I live here I'm 2 blocks away from, or 3
Right.
blocks away from the
And
project.
we want this to be a nice property that looks good, that benefits the community. And the way to do that's not by putting in bigger windows or more windows. The way to do that is with landscaping and possibly two-tone paint or different siding, or just whatever we can do to make it look nice and so people driving by don't say, oh, that's ugly, or oh, that's weird. But anyway, again, my only, the only thing I really want to say is I believe that 15 is residential, 40 is business, which makes sense. You know, we could go up to 20% windows, but I mean, that just means that people are gonna be able to see into the people's houses easier. And if I owned a garage, you know, yes, I'd like to have a couple windows high, but I don't want it to make it easier for people to break in my garage. So if there is a safety issue along with that, because it's people residents in my business.
I would prefer not to do big windows in the garage myself. That's a safe place for people's belongings, and people want onlookers to be able to just easily see and go, hey, I want that.
Does anybody have
I have
any
a question.
questions?
How much higher is your proposal than the next door house? That's a 2-story house. How much higher is yours gonna be?
I don't know that
I don't know
the
the height of it.
height of the other house.
We're about 30 feet,
Yeah, we're actually not much taller than the standard
2-story.
2-story house.
Because that is a standard one right next to it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
So it would be a little bit taller than that, but not much.
Okay,
Yeah, it's actually. It's called a 3-story structure, but it really isn't much taller than the typical 2-story configuration.
The bottom floor is essentially just parking. And then two stories of living above.
So is it an 8-foot garage or 8-foot height in the garage?
I honestly, I don't have the drawings.
Yeah, I didn't bring the drawing, unfortunately.
So I couldn't answer that question.
Yeah. I apologize.
The garage is, it doesn't say the height, but it says it's proposed 11 by 19.
That's where,
I believe it is. I believe the reason that we do keep it low is because it is I believe it is an 8-foot, because it's gonna have I wanna say a 6 or 7 foot door on the garage. But don't hold me for that.
Yeah, I don't have plans.
and the people who use that as a storage area.
It's planned to be used as parking / storage,
Yeah.
similar to the other development.
and if they didn't use it as parking, they would park on Highland or?
So we actually have permission, well, I don't know if we have permission. Correct me if I'm not sure.
No, we don't want to get into that. We're required to have 2 parking spots.
Right.
And we do. We have a parking spot in front of the garage and we have a parking spot inside the
Inside.
garage.
Okay,
And so we meet those requirements. We're hoping for more parking, but
We're hoping to build a park.
that's in the future.
That's in the future.
Can you tell me where, is this gonna be oriented to? Is this North Boundary? Is this what I'm gonna look at when I'm driving on North Boundary? Is this elevation here?
No, oh,
Because it's not gonna be that one, right?
it's gonna, so the side ones are gonna be what you're gonna see off of Highland, and you're
this
gonna see
is
the other
North Boundary.
side off of, and. So,
I'm not even convinced that that's.
can you pull up the,
I think that's just a
Plot
shot
plan?
difference in the windows.
Jeremy, I just shared the elevations with you. You want to pull them up?
I think it's the backside of the, like, say if you're pulling into that center section of this. You got 3 on this side and 3 on this side, right? So the back side of the left.
So they face each other, so
Right,
garages,
right.
so the top one is the garage.
Oh, we got.
Right, that's
And the
the,
bottom one is the back side of the building, so the
That's-
buildings face each other.
yes, so my question is, what is facing north boundary?
So,
And that is this.
yes,
The back side.
the back, so the back side's gonna be facing North Boundary and First Street. Cause they face each other.
Yes,
That's where fencing or trees or something like.
and, okay, so that would be my next question, is this going to be, I can't really tell, well, I can tell by this drawing because there's not,
That's the drawing I was trying to get you
Yeah.
to pull up.
this is,
You have it on there.
that's sidewalk sort of width?
So, no, the behind the buildings is a 5-foot easement, which is basically a backyard of each structure. The sidewalk is gonna be that white section.
Okay, but okay, so that's not even sidewalk width.
It's actually, it should be 5 foot wide, there's a 5-foot easement.
I don't think the sidewalks are in the drawings.
Here it is.
Yeah, this must be it right there.
Okay. So yeah, no, this is a sidewalk going all the way around here and all the way across the front.
And the
I
side.
was trying to get a
On the
I think that- relative, how big this is this as big as a sidewalk, is it as wide as a skateboard? Yeah, just kind of, because, so that you guys can understand and I can understand, so this is what's gonna be facing north boundary. Is this elevation here,
Mhm.
so what people will see when they drive to the Lowell. This parking lot is sitting on north boundary,
Grass.
right, on north boundary, and then I suspect there'll be a fence here, right?
No,
No fence, it's open, okay.
there could be a fence.
There could, well,
We
there's a
believe,
fence there right now.
yeah, but we
Sure.
believe that it would be better without a fence.
And the reason why I'm
That's-
asking these questions is because this all leads into the glazing, because the whole entire reason for that was presentation when somebody's driving by, is what are they seeing? Are they gonna be seeing the back of somebody's house or their backyard? Is there a fence? Are there trees? There's a parking lot. I'm just trying to get a feel for, what is it that we're, and like you said, you want it to look nice.
Mhm.
I would hope that that is driving your design element, is that it looks nice and it's a great place for us to have here, which I don't think it would not be.
Absolutely.
So the glazing only applies to North Highland.
There's no glazing.
There's no glazing on any other direction that I'm aware
So no other glazing requirements other than this elevation right there,
of. So on the Highland, so if you look at
so.
so when you drive Highland.
Yep.
Yep, though, that's the only glazing requirements on the downtown, unless I'm misspoken.
What size are those windows? Are they 3.0, 4.0?
The downstairs, the 40%, I believe, is what, 6
Oh, I'm not
foot?
worried about those.
Those,
Those are ridiculous.
The 15, we don't know, but we could get back to you on that.
yeah, I didn't actually have them scale it, I just had them scale it for the drawing.
All right. Does anybody have anything else? Carmen?
Well, I don't know, I wasn't here when you guys approved this thing at all.
We haven't approved any of
Okay.
it. The only thing we approved was the zoning of that piece of property.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
it.
That's what you mean.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay. I mean, I don't love looking at the back of the house. I think that that is unattractive. I think about going down, Pioneer Parkway and we're going to the roundabout and all those duplexes on, the right side as you're going down is backs of houses. And I just think that it's unattractive. But I'm not saying it can't be unattractive and there's no backyard at all. There's no yard.
There's a 5-foot easement around the property.
Right, but do you have to have a sidewalk in there? Is that your responsibility to put a sidewalk?
If you look at that,
Okay,
if you look at the drawing,
That's just-
the sidewalk is on the left-hand side.
okay,
You can see a white strip,
I see.
that's a sidewalk, and then the other sidewalks is planned to be around the street.
I was just trying to get an idea of scale
Right.
of that little green strip in between the.
That should be 5 foot wide, because the minimum width for you know, a building setback is 5 foot from each side.
Okay, and these, if you look at the elevation, they're not gonna have back doors to that
Right, they're not.
5 foot strip of grass.
Yeah, little porches and
Okay,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I just-
So the chances of having all the big wheels and swimming pools in the backyard, there's no way to them to get back there, so it's not like it's gonna be a drive by on the road and see all that, stuff.
Unless they hang it from the balcony.
Okay.
And I'm assuming these are going to be rentals, correct? This is like townhouse rentals. They're not like the other project where you own them.
Oh,
Well, they could be either or, we're planning on trying to rent,
Okay,
they could be either or, yeah.
Yeah, they could be sold, but
They could be
this is
sold.
our intent to rent them out. There's a serious need involved for.
Well, if we went to sell them, do you have to make them individual plots?
No, no, you do not. You could just, we're gonna subdivide the property, so you have one group of buildings, it's one property, another group of buildings, it's the other property. But so you can sell,
You could
you
sell.
can sell it to two groups,
Just as an address.
correct. I know. I've been told the individuals that are trying to do the other development are trying to get what they call child lots, and if they're successful in that, then that would mean that we could. Subdivide our lot too,
We're not,
but we don't even care at this point because we don't intend to sell it.
no, they're going through a planned use development,
yeah,
so there's a whole nother.
yeah, it's all that,
Yeah.
and it's not to do with ours.
Okay, anything else for the applicants? Anyone? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now hear from those in favor of the application. No. Then if you'd like to speak in favor of the application,
We need more information. In other words, if you don't mind me asking, the driveway that's going in there, is that gonna be gravel or is that gonna be asphalt?
it will be paved.
It will be paved.
Paved.
Okay. Also, are they gonna be able to have parking on the street on Island?
No.
No, okay. If you go back up to the picture that you were just presenting, it was a little confusing of the parking lot. Is that going to be?
We haven't even discussed the parking lot yet.
Okay,
So that's not even, it's just there as a reference at this point for this body's information as to make a decision on the matters that are at hand. That's what we have to focus on, and at some point that will come to this body for approval.
Yeah, we're just not there yet.
We're not there yet.
It's a dream.
Okay,
Okay, can I ask now?
sure.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I would, kindly
Oh,
ask
yes.
for everybody to state their name and address.
State your name and address, please. And if you could stand from the podium so that we can all hear you.
oh, you want, I just
Sorry.
wanted to ask questions, I don't want to make a statement.
Okay, so this is a hearing.
I'm sorry?
This is a hearing. And so whatever you say goes into record.
Okay, so I need to stand up.
Yes, please.
I'm curious from the pictures, because I haven't seen anything of this before.
Your name and address, please.
I'm sorry?
You need to state your name and
Oh,
address
I'm
for the record.
sorry.
It's okay,
My name's Tony Moore,
okay.
and, my address, I own one of the houses that's on the alley,
And your address is,
79 North Island.
thank you. Thank you.
Just, can I ask questions now?
You
Okay.
can ask a question.
So am I understanding that the back of the buildings are gonna be facing Boundary?
That is,
Yes.
that is.
That is
that's
what
presented.
presented. Okay, because I thought that when I saw the city plan, part of the whole idea was that the fronts would be welcoming and homey and, you know, charming for the city looks.
So we are today discussing the window glaze, the amount of glass on the proposed building and I'm saying proposed, it hasn't even been proposed yet. It's
Okay.
more of a question, we're designing our project. And we wanna know if you'll give us a variance, and we're also discussing the access of the property. This body has not seen a building plan yet.
Okay, all right,
So
so
we
now I understand what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying
we
now.
can't,
So those were just drawings to kind of get a picture
Well,
of what's
the
going
fact-
on. Is that right?
they're just, yes,
But the
Okay.
fact is, people made a statement here saying that the back of the building is. And that's so predicated on the 15%, so you can't tease them apart because.
But we are in a land use hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
So we cannot comment on her, we can talk to these guys, but we can't answer those questions. They can answer those questions outside of this, but then that is read into record. And we now have had an ex parte conversation about their development, which
Can I step
renders
over the
all of
line?
us, which renders all of us unable to make a decision.
Okay, I'll pull it back in then.
Okay.
All right, so
I'll pull it back in there.
my
Yeah.
understanding is that we will not be using the alley. Is that right?
That what is on the table tonight. We have not
That's-
made a decision on that, but that is what is on the table tonight.
Okay, so that's what you'll be voting on.
We'll be making a recommendation to the city council.
Okay, well, they have my full recommendation already in writing. So I guess that's all I needed to know. I was just wanting to clarify what I was seeing on the screen versus what I thought I had in my head.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks, Tony, appreciate it. Yeah, we're all trying to get our minds wrapped around it too. Okay. Yes,
My name is Arturo Delgado and I'm right next door, 33 North Island. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we're just approving the percentage of light for the bottom floors and giving them permission to entrance from Highland rather than the alley. Correct? Correct. I approve. I agree with that.
great,
Thank you.
thank you, appreciate it. Okay. Sorry, we just have rules we have to follow. Oh, okay, one more.
Sorry, I didn't do this when I asked the first question. Greg Hampton, number 8 Island across the street. And I was asking about the gravel or the asphalt. Also, I would like to know if this variance is approved or the plan so far, is that going to be, the city's going to require sidewalks for these two property owners up the street, joining sidewalk to sidewalk?
Don't know until we cross that bridge.
Okay, but I mean, okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have, on that is there any, storm drain gonna be affected or any storm water gonna be affected by this variance?
No, because this variance has to do with windows and access, and then when we get to the plans, they come to us, those issues will be addressed at that time.
Okay,
So tonight it has no bearing on what will happen with storm water.
okay, or the parking areas, what you're saying?
Nothing's been approved.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I may,
Go for it.
for the public's
Yeah.
benefit, describe the process.
Perfect.
If the planning commission makes a decision tonight, the next step for the builder to proceed would have to be to submit what's called a site plan review. So at that point, they'll submit their detailed building plans. That'll include not only the building, but also it'll include stormwater, it'll include all of the infrastructure. And at that point, there'll be city engineer review, city plan review, and since it's within the designated downtown area, there will be a notice period. But it's a type 2 approval, which means the city administrator will review it and approve it. And once that process is completed, and if it is completed at that point, the builder will have permission to start getting building permits. So that's how that process works.
So that will not come back to this body then,
Correct.
okay? So it won't.
Well, actually, let me take that back, because there is a unique aspect of the project, and that is the parking lot. Since that's city property, and since the city, it would be the deciding authority myself, I intend to elevate that application to planning commission, because I believe it's in the public interest
Okay,
for the planning commission to have that higher level of approval.
okay, so does everyone understand what Jeremy said?
So tonight we're doing the driveway and windows.
Correct.
And the only reason we're doing the windows is so that they can proceed knowing that we probably would agree with that window size. The other question I have is, what's the width of the driveway going into the property off on it? 20 feet. 40 foot?
And my question is the side elevation for the 15 versus 40, off the North Highland, that's the only. What we're concerned with right now, we're not concerned with the west boundary road at this point in time. Is that correct?
No, and yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And this project will not come back to us for approval. Except for the parking lot.
I intend to exercise my authority.
Okay.
Since the project is all one piece, the parking lot and the townhomes, I intend to exercise my authority to elevate the entire project, including both of those components, to planning commission.
Okay,
And
And-
okay.
And I know what we're doing tonight, but down the road, do we get to voice our, opinion on if we want to look at the back side of a building or front side of a building? Is that not an option down the road?
Look at it.
I've done a little of this developing myself and,
Okay, let's address Carmen's
yeah. well,
comment first.
Addressing that is that the way this would fly is the way it's designed.
Mhm.
There's no way to make the fronts of the buildings so you can see them off of Pioneer or North Highland. On North Highland, you'll be able to see it as you drive by and you're looking in at it.
Right.
There are. So will they, so what will have to happen is it would have to fit code, correct? Downtown residential code.
What was the question? I was just reading the script here.
I don't know, my question was, do we get to voice our satisfaction or unsatisfaction of seeing the back of the building on the main drives, or is that just moot because it's just a matter of meeting code?
So as I mentioned, the next step in the process is a site plan review, and that's where all of those elements come into play. There's a whole list of criteria for site plan review, so that would be the appropriate time.
Okay. But that may or may not come here.
Yeah, because you're saying no, you're saying maybe, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna see it again.
The site plan review will come to planning commission. I intend to exercise my authority to elevate that.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Saul Henry had his hand.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Henry?
That was a good comment you made. So as I said in my presentation, I do think there's some flexibility and some concessions that can be discussed, such as the rear elevation, adding facade transparency to the back of the buildings in place of the ground floors facing North Highland. I think that's maybe a debate and a discussion that could occur. Kind of the planning commission's willing to give up 40%, but in return, they get more facade transparency on the rear elevations. So that is, that is up for debate.
Okay. Does anyone we've already had our discussion with the applicant. Does anyone have any other questions for the applicant? Nope. Okay, great.
I do, will the windows, if I'm not, are the windows gonna be on the same size, front and back?
Same side.
Size.
They're different windows all around.
Yeah.
The backs are way different from it.
And the
Yeah,
backs are
it's-
usually much smaller?
No,
We haven't, so these are all rough.
in the
drawings.
determination of
Yeah.
whether it's front and back, would you rather look at the garage? You can just put the garage space in the street, so you see a garage and not much of the house.
No, I just asked
But
a
if I
question.
turn around where they are, then you'll see more windows. It will look better with the garages on the interior as opposed to the exterior. And that is the intent of coming off the alleyways. They don't want a bunch of driveways going up.
Well, I don't think the question was about driveways, it was about the window size. So she
But a
wanted like,
driveway runs into a garage, which determines how many windows and window size. So you're gonna see a garage door or you're gonna see windows. That's what we're talking about.
Well, you're gonna see a garage door and the front.
I think on this elevation, let's assume that this is the basis of what's gonna happen.
That, I don't believe that's our building.
Okay, well, so a garage level, a living level, and then a bedroom level,
That's
correct?
correct.
Are you going to have patios? Is there going to be, will this sliding glass door exist or no?
I would have to look at our plans. I
Okay,
don't- I
We
don't
haven't, we haven't got that far.
Okay.
We're still in process.
so you didn't submit this to Henry?
Distance.
It says Tim and Ally Yeager on it? You didn't submit this to Henry for it to be included in the packet?
No, I did. send
We
it.
did, we absolutely did.
Yeah.
That is strictly showing the difference between 15% windows and 40%
Okay.
windows. It
Yeah.
doesn't show the design of the building, where the garages are, or anything else. All that is what it looks like with 15% and what it looks like with
Alright.
40%.
That's unfortunate.
And I'm sorry, we don't have our building. But we haven't paid the architect to draw our building because we don't know what we have to do yet.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what this. whole-
Yeah, so then I guess
We can't make a building because we don't know whether we have 40%, we don't know what we have to build yet. We're still in the waiting on.
Yes.
And we're just trying to decide what we're basing our decision on and what it's gonna look like, because at some point this building will be erected. And they're gonna go, wait, that wasn't what we discussed in our meeting, but we discussed it based on this. So sometimes this is helpful and sometimes it's just a little bit more confusing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
As far as we knew, the question was just off of Highland, it wasn't.
Yeah, we were just talking about. how-
Realm, it's the scope, so the variance as far as we were prepared for was just off of Highland, so it was just that side view. And clearly, looking at the side view, you know, we don't want it to look out of place for the neighborhood, because it's a residential zone. We haven't made any final decisions on the rest of the building.
Right, but I can tell you just from talking with everybody, and I appreciate you being here, that we're gonna have to make the front, which you call the back, the front look as nice as possible. And there's different ways to do that, I'm sure, but we haven't gotten into the design factor, because if we did, we'd have to pay him to design it and decide, and we'd have to pay him to design it a second time.
Right,
So we're just waiting to see
sure, makes sense.
our parameters.
How we should go move forward.
And sorry for any confusion.
You could trust us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I have ask? Chairman? I heard Henry say that we can approve 15% with a caveat.
We could.
So it's not a yes or no, it's like 15% if. Did I hear that right?
Henry, you
said-
wanna clarify for this body?
I said, as the planning commission, you might consider some flexibility, some concessions. It doesn't mean you have to. I'm saying that's something the planning commission might want to consider. They don't have to.
Right, so in the approval process, it doesn't have to be yes or no, it could be say, yes, 15% is okay if. For
Or
example.
we'd like to see 20 or 25% on that side of the road. So bigger
Yeah, say
windows,
for example,
maybe-
like say the 15% facing North Highland is permitted, but the planning commission would like to see the rear elevation up to 20%. That would be a fine negotiation.
Okay. That makes big.
And the reason I find that that's reasonable to consider is that this is within the downtown core area. And we do have that adopted master plan that has these design standards. So while the 40% may be too much, it's still important. Because this is within the downtown.
Agreed, I think that, given the fact that we have this, and this might not even be what we're looking at. Finally, this was a bit of a distraction, although I know it was meant to be a help, so I appreciate the effort.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, it's all right, I would like to see more windows, I'd like to see more glazing on the back side of the building, especially the building, the one that fronts boundary.
Yeah, well, if there is that patio and stuff, then they would probably hit that at least 20.
If
25.
there is one, we don't know.
As I said, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know,
Right.
we don't know. There's that, right? So I think that okay, we need to get back to where we are in this. Okay,
Back on track.
back on track, because we're gonna deliberate after this is all done, so we haven't even got to our deliberation yet.
Okay.
There's no, is there anyone opposing the applicant? No, okay,
On both or one, excuse me.
Either.
Sorry about that. Either,
on either.
yes, I would like more information, Greg, and again, on what is gonna be done with the alleyway if this variance goes into effect. If it's the driveway, what's gonna happen with that property?
The alley?
The one that's gonna be used as the driveway, you wanting to put the entrance to the property on, Island?
It will
So,
be, it'll be developed to the development standards of the Lowell City Code. Are you talking about the curb cut?
no, what I'm referring to is the alleyway that goes behind these, both parties' property. What's
Okay.
gonna happen to that alleyway once it's not used as a driveway? Will
that
that
will
property
be,
be donated to the owners, or will that property go
No,
back
that
to the
property
city?
belongs to the city, and
Okay.
the city will probably retain ownership, but that's not even something that we're talking about tonight.
Okay,
That requires study, Henry bringing in a bunch of other things, so, yeah.
It will remain as public right of way.
okay, just like it.
Nothing will happen. We'll see.
Okay, that's the answer I needed.
It should stay as an alley.
So,
That
All right.
alley that nobody uses.
Okay, did you have anything else to add? It says now the applicant has been afforded the opportunity to respond to any testimony received and provide the final rebuttal.
I don't believe we do, but
We do not need a rebuttal.
Okay, great.
Again, after listening to you, we're gonna talk to the architect a little bit about how we can make it look as nice as possible, facing Highland Street. And there are no requirements because there's the property in between us and Highland Street. But that doesn't mean that we don't want it to look good because we live here and we want we want it to look good, if you're gonna be able to stand over at the high school and look over and see this.
yeah,
Uh,
we could flip the top two levels. 2 stories.
I don't know. But,
You never know. I mean, make
Yeah,
make the west boundary look like the front, where they drive into the garage on the back, there's lots of, we haven't drawn it yet, so there's all sorts of opportunities.
yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of houses that the garage goes into the back of the house.
Yeah.
In front of the house. But Jake and I are very, agreeable to make it look as nice as possible, and a large part of that, in my opinion, is getting plants, shrubs, just making it nice and inviting for whoever lives there. So,
Again, it is literally 4 blocks from my house, and I've lived here my entire life. I drive that every day, so I want to look good as well.
well, and we're hoping after this project's complete to do more here, so
Yes,
we want
I'm not
to work with you, not against you.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And appreciate everybody being here.
Thank you for your time.
Take your time out and having my questions.
So you want a motion on the driveway?
Not yet. Because we need to close the public hearing, correct? Jeremy?
That mean kicking us out?
No?
Yes, close the public hearing and move into deliberations.
Great, so at this time, we're gonna close the public hearing at 7:02. And we will move into deliberations amongst the planning commissioners. Go ahead and already done. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna discuss each land use application separately. So I believe the first one is for the use of the driveway as opposed to the alley. Does anyone have any comments or discussion?
I'll make a comment, but we're not reinventing the wheel.
Madam Chair,
Oh, sorry.
if I may interject, Henry has proposed motions, which I'll.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Jeremy, pull up, they're on the slides. The last slide has the motions. And just, yeah, so the one you're talking about now is the variance of the alleyway.
I'll make a motion to approve land use application LU 202401 to allow access to the property from North Highland Street and not require access via the alleyway based on the findings and conclusions as contained in the staff report.
I'll second it.
Great. It's been moved and seconded to approve the variance. Is there any discussion? Anything you want to add? No? Great. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Okay. Great. Recommend that to the city council. And now we need one for the facade transparency.
Madam Chair, I have a point of clarification.
Great.
Henry, this is a type 3 process, correct?
Right, so think I just heard a comment saying something about city council, so city council will not see these, this does not go to city council unless it's appealed. The planning commission is the deciding authority on both of these applications.
All right. Thank you. Great. Sorry, I missed that point. So then we've approved it. So now we're moving on to the facade transparency.
Yeah, and as you can see here, I didn't write a motion because I didn't know how the planning commission would land on this one. If they want to just approve it kind of as the applicant is proposing, you would make a motion to reduce the facade transparency for the ground floors and upper floors facing North Highland from 40% to 15%. That would be in the applicant's best. That's what they would want to see, but the planning commission may find otherwise.
So Jeremy, if we would like to recommend that the east facing facade has 20% transparency and the south facing facade also has 20% transparency. Is that part of what we would do tonight, or do we need to bring this back? No, we could do that tonight.
Sure.
Jeremy, might I suggest if it's not too much trouble, pull up just a Word document so you can kind of track what the motion is, because they want to change
Can you
percentages.
see my screen, Henry? Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. I see my slides right now. Yep.
I got a Word document pulled up. Let me try it again.
It's just
There we
important
go.
to have a clear depiction of the record and the
Can
notice.
you see my Word document?
Yep.
Okay, so, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Say it again and go slowly.
Sure. Motion to reduce North Highland Lane facade transparency from 40 to 20%. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? Yeah.
Does the 5% really make a difference though? Going off North Highland?
So it would depend on,
Yeah, I've heard a lot of other caveats on what would increase the aesthetics, including, well, there might be what is that called? A terrace, a lobby, what is that called? Patio.
adding.
Or there might be nice vegetation.
Mhm.
So writing that into this makes sense and so. And that's a different approach than just increasing the transparency.
True.
I think it's more clear because it really states what we're looking for.
Okay.
And the 15% on the windows would be fine if there's a patio or other things and pretty trees in that 5-foot space.
Mhm.
Well, on that side, there's gonna be more than 5 feet. We're gonna have room to plant, leaf trees, if you will.
Right, to see.
Bushes, flowers. We're gonna have room to do landscaping on that side, which we intend to do, and you require us to do landscaping.
So it's kind of like a decision tree, if 15%, we approve 15%, if these things happen, or 25% if you choose not to. Right, I mean, so
Mhm.
that's another.
We have to have that today.
Yeah, this is what we're deciding is how we're going to, meet the other requirement, so they don't wanna do the 40,
Yeah,
what
agree,
would
yeah.
you like to see as opposed to that?
Well, can we say 15 because that is the minimum, and then after we actually see what the building looks like, then we can adjust that, or once this is in, it's 15?
That's a good question. Once it's in, it's in. And
Okay.
if what your comment, what I'm hearing is, the applicant's building plans are not really what's being proposed. So if the planning commission doesn't have enough information to make a decision, then they continue the hearing and request that additional information. Showing the
Yes, that
actual.
is an option, yeah.
We can continue this, we don't have to, we can continue this variance with more information.
Yes.
But the applicant's probably wanting to know tonight if they don't have, if we're saying, okay, yeah, 40% is too much. And then they can move forward in their mind and their architects and all that stuff, saying, okay, we've taken care of the North Highland 40% because it just doesn't make sense to have 40% on that side of the building and stuff. So if we postpone it, then it's causing harm to the applicant. Is it not, or is it?
Well, it is, because it has weird plans according to the window size.
Right.
I don't think,
So it's there.
however, for us to make a decision on this,
Mhm,
I think that this was a little misleading.
mhm.
Yes.
Because this was kind of what I was basing my decision on. And I would like to see something more reflective of what we're really going to see, so that I can see what reducing 40% to 20% or 15% is really going to impact.
Yes, 100%.
That is.
But that is,
On the
it's
side of
just,
the building, so keep in mind, this is only for Upper Highland.
Right.
So you guys keep talking about west boundary, that is not in this variance whatsoever.
We're not talking about.
We,
Understood, but you told me this is not a representation of what.
the 40% and
40%,
50%
15%.
But
is a representation, that is what 40% looks like, that is what 15% looks like. Off of Highland,
okay,
Based on window size, that's it.
based on
Just
window
based
size.
on window
It's just
size.
based on window size
Yeah,
and
it doesn't,
Not even how many windows, just window size.
Yeah, and we would like to see what it looks like, so we can see what the aesthetics is between 20%, 25%.
And I could be wrong here, but I believe that we don't get to a deciding factor based on what Jeremy said, that we will not get to decide on their plans and what they get.
we are, he's going to elevate it to this body.
Yeah, I think we're getting this all confused on the structure of what they're trying to build versus, how much light they want in there, I
Sir.
mean.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry, we closed the public hearing. Henry, can you bring in on this for us, please?
Yeah, please. What was the question?
Good, so the question is that we have this drawing in our packet. Several of us we've all reviewed it, we've looked at it, we're using it to base our decision on. And I'm feeling several people of this body would prefer more information on this before making a decision. I understand that the 40% versus the 15% is what we're looking at here. And I think that this drawing was just a disservice to us trying to get to someplace tonight. I guess I should talk to the body. What is your feelings? Because if we vote on this and give them parameters, they're going to move forward. But if we're not okay with it, then we need to add more information to come back. That is what we're about. This is a judicial body making a judicial decision.
Right, and I am a very visual learner, and I know that this is a massive structure that's going to be at the part of the downtown, not at the heart, but at the edge of it, just coming into it, and we want it to look, pleasing. So the 40% windows is great, that's a normal size window. However, I mean, is it like how many windows? Is there a slider? Is there all that stuff? So I would just like to see actually what the proposed building looks like from that side.
If I,
That's just me, I'm just more of a
yeah,
visual
no,
learner.
that's a good point. So if you want to request more information, you can do so. I would just be specific in what you're asking for. And
Right.
remember that we are focused on the facade transparency. We're not necessarily looking at
Right.
the building designs yet, but you do want to see what the facade transparency looks like on the actual building.
I have a question, is the complaint basically for the garage?
It's not a complaint, it's an application for a
Look
variance.
at that application all throughout the whole house.
We just think it's unrealistic to put 40% on Highland Street, because it doesn't match any of the rest of the residential housing, and it would require us to put sliding glass doors into the garage. 40% is way more of an overkill for residential
So
purposes
this
on
is-
that side of that property.
The other three sides of the building are 15%.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just
It's just Highland.
Highland Street, the requirements is 40%.
I think that's where you guys are jumping forward, because this variance is just for Highland Street. It does have nothing to do with boundary.
Yeah, I know that.
Mhm.
So
I'm
we haven't even
there.
decided what we're
I'm
gonna
not
do
gonna
with
do
boundary.
that. I'm
We
not
haven't even talked about it.
The intent is, again, what I believe is important in the intent versus residential and commercial. But the other point is making it look good for the community.
Mhm.
And by saying, yeah, you can do that, but you have to put in 4 trees, you have to put in flowers, you have to put in bushes.
That's already in the code for you guys.
Yeah, we're gonna do all that.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're already
okay.
through that.
Yeah, so let's bring this back to the
I
point.
know,
No,
that's in the
it's okay. Yeah, landscaping is in the code. Is they're asking for a variance on the North Highland, which is just the side of the building.
Right.
And that is what the code says, correct? Because it is the main road. Or it has to have the 40% facing their
The
main
front.
road,
The
yes,
street front, yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Well, if all the other windows are 15%, it makes sense for it to be, symmetrical.
I'm gonna give it 15%, to be honest with you. If we're, I know we're not taking a vote right now,
Right.
we're discussing, so.
All the other windows.
I just think that, the previous planning, when it was rezoned, what it is, it was the previous planning commissions said, yeah, it's okay to put a 3-story multifamily plex there. So giving that permission or rezoning this situation, it was known that there's gonna be a big building there or buildings there. So I just think that, I agree with the applicants as far as the 40% is, I think it's unsafe, it's
Necessary.
unnecessary, so, I basically agree going from 40 to 15%. So, I'm one person, so
I mean,
I just,
so we need motion.
Yeah.
yeah,
So go ahead, do you want to make a motion?
okay, right, so if we could change that. So the motion is actually motion to reduce Highland Lane.
Excuse me, can I ask one question before you make?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So the motion is actually setting a minimum, right? But which is really not it's about setting the standard. So even though the language in here says we're setting a minimum here, we're pretty much saying it's not gonna go any higher. So in the motion, can we put a range, or is it just really one number?
He already said it, that was it. So can we put a range in?
I don't know what the range would accomplish.
Yeah.
Because there is a range, we can build it as big as we want.
The 15 is just a minimum, it could absolutely.
Minimum, so there's
Okay,
a range.
can make it
would be
minimal.
necessary.
I thought that I heard him say, it's it. If we put it in there, then that's what it is.
Yes.
No, that's not the size it has to be, it's just a minimum. So bare minimum, it has to be 50%. So we could put, if we wanted to, we could build the whole side of the garage covered with sliding glass door, if we wanted to, but
I think that'd be great.
I think it would look terrible, but we could do it if we had some very good reason we liked it. Or we thought somebody would like it,
That's the standpoint.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, Brenda, what would you recommend, or what would you suggest?
Oh, I just,
I know we talked about additional landscape, maybe they add 5% to their landscaping. Add 10% to their landscaping to offset the reduction in place.
it's all really tricky without the full picture.
I agree.
So I just wanted to
Absolutely.
be really clear about what we were saying, what the motion was actually saying. So, because even if the language was kind of like we're setting the minimum, what we're really saying is, that's it.
Mhm.
Okay, so to me, that language is a little different. So we're saying that 15% is what's gonna happen.
15% is.
And so that's what the motion is.
Madam Chair, Henry has his hand raised.
Sorry, Henry, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, I don't think it's a problem anymore, but landscaping is already gonna be required, and that's gonna be reviewed with the site plan itself. So they will have to submit a landscaping plan showing how they're gonna meet those requirements.
Correct, but if we were to exchange landscaping for transparency to bump up.
I wouldn't
Okay, good.
recommend that, because
That's not
we're
my
not
favorite
talking
thing
about land,
either.
yeah, I would keep it focused on the transparency if you're gonna trade anything, but I would keep it focused on the facade transparency is the item being discussed.
All right,
I guess go ahead and make a motion then.
go ahead.
Okay, so Jeremy, I was gonna read the top one. I make a motion to approve a variance for land use application 2024-01. Is it 01 or 03?
01.
01, to reduce the North Highland
No,
link facade transfer
It
from
is-
40%.
sorry, I'm sorry, it is 0.
I think it is
Oh, it's
3.
zero. It is my-
One is the alleyway.
One down, okay.
There you
Oh, okay.
go.
So- I make a motion to approve the variance for land use application 2024-03 to reduce the North Highland Lane facade transparency from 40% to 15%.
I second that question. It's been moved and seconded to approve the variance for the land use application 2024-03 to reduce the North Highland facade transparency from 40 to 15. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Variance is been accepted. Do we have any other business? Jeremy, anything else?
No other business.
You're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say to everybody that after listening to you tonight and getting to briefly meet you, I think the key point is how we make this look up more boundary moving forward. And when we come with drawings, to have accurate drawings of what it's going to be, I think we're going to try and make it look as pretty as possible from that side. Again, we have that other property between us and the road, but that doesn't matter. We still want to.
Thank you. Thank you so much at that. We know you guys live here and, yeah, that's very much appreciated. This drawing was.
Yeah, we're just trying to show.
It's,
Yeah,
it
we're
was just
coming
for
in
that
for
purpose, it wasn't for
50.
the whole,
Yeah,
That's it.
it ended up being, but that's all right.
sorry.
Henry, we're adjourned. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Henry.
joining us and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All hours.